Hello, Zuko here. I hope you don't mind. I took last week off because I fell down the stairs again. This isn't new for me. I think my stairs are cursed. Yeah, I took a week off because everything kind of hurt. I want to talk about all of the books that I read in the month of June. Now, a lot of years and a lot of people do like a deliberately queer TBR for June, and I didn't do that because I read queer all the time, but I did read some queer books. So yeah, this month I read 7 books and DNF'd 2 books. Let's get right into it. First, I read House on the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I'm not going to talk about this a lot, but initially I gave this 5 stars because I really enjoyed it. And then I learned where the inspiration came from, which involved, you know, residential schools in Canada, where I live, where right now we are finding a bunch of bodies of children. And this book kind of went to glorify that situation, even if it was just an inspiration. It feels icky knowing that this is like such a cute, feel-good book where children are still taken away from their parents, and their happy ending is not they go home to their families. I gave this a 1 star, and please look into, I believe it's called The 60s Swoop, if you are interested to know the inspiration behind this book and why it's gross. Next, I read Autumn by David Moody. This is the beginning of a zombie series where the zombies are attracted to noise, and that is what makes them aggressive. This book was slow. It was slow, the characters were meh, I didn't like it. I owned the first 5 books. I think there have been more books published since I originally bought the series, but I didn't really like it. So I gave this a 2 out of 5 stars, and I will not be continuing on with the series. Then I read The Witch King by H.E. Edgemon. I really enjoyed this book. This follows a trans main character who has left the Fae world despite being betrothed to a prince because he doesn't want to be, so he left the Fae world and is living out his truth in the human world, and he ends up being brought back to the Fae world for reasons. I really loved this book. I know it's not for everybody. The author has said that they are an unlikable queer person who writes unlikable queer characters, and I think that's probably very true in this book. I have a friend who didn't like any of the characters. I loved it all because they all felt like real people. There was very modern slang, which made it feel like these were just my friends, and I enjoyed that a lot. So I give this book 5 out of 5 stars. You should check it out if you are looking for a fun queer fae book. Yeah. Then, and I don't have it here, so I'll just pop it up right here, I read Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson, right? Yes, this is the 4th book and first standalone in the Truly Devious series. Sorry, I'm looking at my iPad to remember what anything is called. And I enjoyed this. I like these books. They're fun. They're a quick read. They're like a nice mystery, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I give this a 4 out of 5 stars. This is Ace of Spades by Faridah, Àbíké-Íyímídé. I hope I pronounced that right. I'm trying. I have a pronunciation guide here because I don't want to mess it up when I don't have to. It seems rude. This book was such a ride. So first of all, huge trigger warnings in this book for like homophobia and racism. If those things are going to hurt you, please don't pick this up, or pick it up with caution. So this is about a very prestigious high school where all of a sudden during their senior year, 2 students start to get blackmailed and harassed and bullied out of absolutely nowhere, and it is very distressing, and they're trying to figure out what the hell is going on because none of this was happening any of the years previous, and they don't know why someone would be targeting them. Please don't read this if homophobia and racism are going to really harm you. I don't want that to be the case, but if you can stomach it, I guess. It was just so good and powerful and interesting. It was just such a good read. I really enjoyed it. I'm really debating on if I keep it or if I donate it to a school library so that like young people can read it. You know? I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm sorry that was long-winded and probably very disjointed. Then I read The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. I think previously I have butchered the title of this book. I read this. Ooh, that's not even like the signed edition isn't even like it's printed on. It's not even a sticker. How exciting. Oh, it's got a little signature. John Green signed so many things. This is a bunch of essays about the world as it is now, kind of. There's like essays on air conditioners and Old Lang Syne and just stuff like that. I really enjoyed this. I like John Green's writing. I like just listening. I listened to the audiobooks. I like just listening to people narrating their own nonfiction books. I enjoyed this. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Lastly, I read Lycanthropy and Other Chronic Illnesses by Kristen O'Neill. Now, I want to preface this by saying I am aware of the controversy of this book. I know a lot of people say, and I choose to believe them, that they feel like the cover is comparing the Indian main character to a wolf, and the stereotypes of Indian people being really like hairy and stuff, and they find that very distasteful. Also, this book is like kind of marketed or claimed to be own voices, but the main character is Indian and the author is white. What is own voices is that the main character and the author both have chronic illnesses, but I think that the author probably should have written a white main character. As white people, we don't understand that there are other nuances to being a person of color who is chronically ill, because there's just more oppression being faced by not being white. But, and I'm sorry if that makes you mad, I guess. Aside from that, I did actually really enjoy this book. I went into it being like, I'm not gonna like this, and then I'm just gonna unhaul it. I just want to read it to get rid of it. So this book follows a main character who, in her first year of college or university to become a doctor, she ends up with Lyme disease. So she goes back to live at home with her family, and she ends up meeting friends on Tumblr, and they form kind of a like chronic illness disabled community, which is super sweet. And she finds out that her best friend from Tumblr and this community ends up only living an hour away, and when she goes missing one day and just hasn't been online for a while, the main character, who I believe is called Priya, drives to her friend's house to find out what is wrong. I'm sure you can guess by the title of this book. So despite the controversy of this book, I actually really enjoyed it. As someone who is disabled and has chronic health issues myself, it just felt really genuine. The friendships felt real. The conversations they had felt real. And the illness rep felt really real. And I liked that. I liked that it wasn't done to be romantic. Because there's just so much sick lit where it's about sick kids who fall in love and then disregard all of their medical safety. And that wasn't this book. I felt just really represented in that aspect. But again, I do think that the author probably should have saved the space for Indian people to write about Indian main characters with chronic illness, and should have made the main character white. Yeah, I ended up giving this book about a 3 out of 5 stars. I would have rated it higher had I not been aware of the like potential racism of this book. For the record, the main character is Indian, the werewolf is white, so it is not comparing in the book directly Indian characters to being like wolves. I hope that made sense. I'm sorry that these things are long-winded today. And lastly, the 2 books I DNF'd were Rule of 3 by Eric Walters. This is a dystopian set in a world where all of a sudden all the electronics stopped working. I made it 100 pages in, and I'm like, this is so bland. It's just gonna be people fighting people. I don't care. So I DNF'd this, and I will not be continuing on with the series. Clearly, I did on all 3 books, but now they're gonna go to a new home, either at the local used bookstore or at a school library, so that's fun. And lastly, I'm really sad to say that I DNF'd The Undercover Princess by Connie Glynn. I really like Connie, or I did at one point, and I wanted to support her, so I bought her book. I didn't care for it. I don't know how far I made it. The writing wasn't great. The plot was silly. It just all felt immature, I guess. So I DNF'd this as well. So yeah, that is everything I read in the month of June. Let me know down below what you read in June, or the favorite thing you read in June, or if you've read any of these books and loved them or hated them or whatever. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I will see you whenever I do my next video.